Okay, we have 20 of the best campaigns, some of the best campaigns for 2025 coming at you.
Yeah, we get into the ones we loved, why we love them, and we love them all for different reasons. And our list was not the kind of big blockbuster campaigns, but like also some small brands, some unexpected ones. There's, multiple finance companies in here. So
that was not on my bingo card.
No. So enjoy. Let us know what we missed. We're excited to hear from you. And yeah, just should be a fun one.
Yeah, enjoy. It should be a fun read, watch for your post-comatose turkey. Enjoy.
Yeah. Happy Turkey Day. Hey, everyone. It's Chris.
And Kirsten.
Welcome to Good Thinking Weekly, the podcast where we discuss the best of the best in brands, marketing, and culture.
Thousands of people, top execs from the likes of Complex, Klaviyo, Walmart, Wall Street Journal, and LVMH tune in every single week.
We run a creative consultancy in GoodCo, so we know what it takes to build a good brand.
Subscribe on YouTube, your favorite podcast app, and Good Thinking on Substack for more.
All right, let's dive in. Neither of us are in New York.
Neither of us are in New York. Live from LA and Trento.
Yeah, Italy.
We're in our gray period. Welcome to Good Thinking.
Welcome to a very lighthearted, you're about to go eat a lot of turkey. We want to put you in a good mood, maybe think about things that are funny, relaxing, that, not work type of things, just lighthearted content for your last day in the office, pre-coma.
Yes, pre-turkey coma. This is for you. We're just going to review the campaigns that we loved for the year, and we've had fun kind of digging in, making the list, and we'll get into it, but it should be a fun, enjoyable, hopefully going along with your holiday coma. All right.
Or, listen to this post-coma, whatever your mood, whenever the mood strikes. But it will be 20 campaigns in no particular order because I cannot do anything similar to ranking these. This seems way too difficult, or so not the spirit. And as you were talking about before we got on this and started recording, which is normally the most entertaining period, so quite honestly, we should just do that.
We should.
There's kind of aspects, the reason that we picked each of these is not this is the most mega campaign in the world and it's, this is the Cannes Lions of that's not the point of this episode. The point is to highlight things that we think are fun, interesting, they did well, they could have been small, they could have been experiential, they could be, just for social, across categories. So we have B2B, retail, we have all sorts of things in here. We have herpes, which is, going to be the bane of my algorithm existence. I'm not allowed to say the word herpes anymore. It does not go well on LinkedIn. People do not like it if you say the word herpes.
Note to self.
Posts do not perform. But, there's a lot in here. So let's just dive in and talk about them in no particular order.
And the only thing I would add is one of the things I love, and we'll talk about it, is they all kind of do something a little bit different and pull on something that, again, is relevant to any industry. And then the other thing I would add is, what did we miss? Give us your comments, give us your thoughts, as you're doom scrolling, as you're thinking back to the year, what are the great campaigns that we missed? We'd love to hear from you. All right.
Or if you worked on a campaign that we missed and you think, hey, that's not cool, they didn't mention my campaign, drop it in the comments. Show us your campaign. We're on YouTube. You can drop your link. It'll be right there. So go get it.
All right.
Go get it, teams. All right. First one is going to be really niche, right? So I love this brand. I have never received this brand, so I will say that I love this brand from afar in the way that I think is the best experience you can have of a brand, right? To fall in love with a brand that you've never touched, seen, smelled, heard, any of it is, to me, that's the essence of branding. So that's why I put this one on my list, is that I've been falling in love with this brand through its campaigns. And this brand is called Ffern's, I think.
Right. Are you supposed to double
it
F it or
has two
no?
F's. Ffern's? I don't know. I probably not. They did this campaign in the summer called Pink Sky at Night that starred Bill Knight or Bill Nye. I think it's Bill Nye.
It's Bill Nye or Bill Nye. Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? He's amazing. He's very cute, elder gentleman. And to me, it was the essence of Instagram premium. So this brand makes fragrance, if you don't know what it is. they do like drops of fragrances. You have to be subscribed. Like there's a whole like mechanics behind this brand that I find really interesting. And they do this amazing job of like storytelling around new scents. So they have a scent, they release it, then it's gone. So, and when you receive it, you get like all of this information around the scent, and like they do a whole like rigmarole of like storytelling, which I think has been really, really beautiful. They did one after this one that was about apples, and like the content for that was also incredibly good. This particular one felt bigger because of the cast. But it was about, it shows the story of like these two people, and they decide to set up like an ice cream truck or a sorbet truck, and they talk about the summer flavors, and like this person comes along, and it's about like the feeling of summer, right? Like that feeling that you go and you get this like perfect, or I don't know if it's peach, but like in my head it's peach ice cream, and you're like, that's just like the best, you know, like, and they're from England, I think, and like, or at least the campaign is shot in England or in the UK, and it just has this like it's really like well done in terms of the storytelling. Like you just feel like you're there. You feel like you can smell like the scent of this feeling, right? And I just love like that they're trying things really differently. They're like super storytelling driven. Like it's very Instagram premium. Like the way that it's shot is like a total movie, right? It's 10 minutes long, and it has none of the tropes of fragrance marketing, which like if you think about fragrance marketing traditionally, right? It's just like, here's a celebrity swooning in the wind and they don't tell you anything, and it's like, why is Jennifer Lawrence like running around in a cloud? Like, wait, it's a fragrance commercial, you know? Like it's just so bad. Like car commercials, I think, fall into the similar realm. Movie like trailers, which we're going to talk about in a bit, like also fall into this like tropey. Like no one has done anything else other than these things. And I think these guys are trying to do something really different. And
Right. Yeah. I think this is a great one. God, I feel like Roger Ebert. I feel like, which not words I thought were ever going to come out of my mouth. I think, and this is in your notes, but I think the thing that this really does for me is it takes a category that I think fragrance ads are typically so over the top because it's like, what are you going to fucking talk about? So they make them so kind of aspirational and dreamy. And like, you always see them in airports, and in Europe, they're just everywhere. Like, it's so much. And I love that they did something different and they really leaned into it, but they didn't do something different and like, well, we're going to make fun of it or we're going to really go the other direction. They just did something of like creating some really beautiful cinematic storytelling that was right for the brand. And obviously it has a little bit of kind of a nod, a little bit of humor with the cast that they did. And so I think like just that positioning of it to me is really, really why I'd give it a thumbs up.
Yeah. And I would say like also I like it because it's a really small, I think it's a relatively small brand. And so like, you know, maybe not the smallest brand out there, but like as we come into kind of like small business Saturday or whatever that's coming up, I think that
Everybody's got a day.
Everyone's got a day, but like I'm getting a lot of PR pitches around that. But like it's to me like an example of a brand that says, hey, we might not have the hugest budget in the world, but we have the most creativity. And that's like that's our ammo, right? And we're doing this. And they really have like leaned into that. Maybe they knew Bill and like that worked out for them. Who knows why he got cast? But like, you know, like he's not the most obvious, but he's well known, and they did it in a playful way, and they used the star power that they had. I think it got a lot of play when it happened, like relative to the size of the brand that they are. And so I think it's just for me, like, I like starting out here because like I think there's a lot of brands in here that are super backed by like enormous budgets, and it's going to be like, well, I can't compete with the Nikes of the world. And by the way, Nike's not on this list, but like it's an example of like, no, you can compete in your own way. Go out there and start trying.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of the world that we are in, like creativity for the win. And you can create something, just put it on your social account, you know, or, you know, have a bit more of a budget, which these guys had to do something with it. But I think it's a great example. Okay. Salomon.
I really loved the Salomon Gohar sisters whisper ad. I don't even know. It was like a tiny little collaboration. Like it was a tiny little campaign. I think in the grand scheme of like Salomon shoe releases, probably a blip on their radar. But I think it was really well done. again, very cinematic, very storytelling
Hmm.
driven. That'll be a theme, I think, because that's just the moment we're living in, like high effort. The campaign itself is like, it's set in a library. The shoe is called A Whisper. They tell this story of like, you go in and you see this librarian, and then they're like running through the library, and it's the three sisters, and the librarian's like, shh. And then it's the all the Gohar sisters kind of, it's just like very charming, very nice. I think it was a great example of like Instagram premium and like, again, where I think ads are at right now. Like I wrote today, and it hasn't been released, maybe, I don't know, my LinkedIn post about,
It's because you
to
said
me, like,
herpes.
yeah, it's no, I think I just haven't, I wrote it and I haven't like put it out into the world, is about like how nowadays, like, like ads used to be high effort in terms of high production. And I think
Hmm.
now like effort means something completely different. It means like the ad itself needs to be the art piece. Like it's not like advertising the art, right? Like the shoe is not the object that you're advertising. The whole campaign is a commercial for its own self, And I think
Yeah.
that's what you're going to see, like so much of like the theme of this is like the actual thing that you're creating is a piece of culture. Like
Hmm.
it lives in culture and like sits and belongs there and creates
Yes.
something for
If you're
itself.
doing it right. If you're doing it right. And this is a great example of that. And I give Solomon such props for taking a brand that isn't necessarily known for this. And it's definitely pushing into almost more of kind of a fashion kind of realm of taking a sport brand that's fairly traditional, like what it does. And it's just pushing the boundaries of what that can do really through the storytelling, which, yeah, I think it makes it a piece and a moment in time in culture that typically, like, you wouldn't think, oh, yeah, the new Solomon boot came out and it's this. So well
Yeah.
done.
And I think Salomon has become like very much like a fashion darling shoe in the Gorp core like space. And so they like found a way to like tell that story in a way that's like cool and interesting. They partnered up, in my opinion, with the right people for doing it. An unexpected, but also very fashion forward group. I think it claps on all the kind of levels.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like that they're getting into fashion not in an obvious way. They're doing at
Yes.
it from more of a culturally relevant way, from a way that feels more sophisticated and leaning into the storytelling versus I think a lot of brands that are getting into the fashion can go deadly wrong of just leaning into the more obvious things, which well done, they did not do. Okay.
Completely. All right.
Ramp.
We have two like on this list like that are in the finance space, which I would say is like very
Not on bingo card.
unexpected. Not on the bingo card of things to say. Ramp is I would say Ramp is trying to be like the new American Express. Like that's their kind of that's 100% who they're trying to unseat. They are a corporate bank card. Like that's what they're going after, and they're trying to do that. But they couldn't be more opposite in their kind of energy. And so that's why I put this on here as like, the truth is B2B has like for a really long time managed to kind of get by with like sponsoring conferences as like the only way that they do marketing. And that era has changed. Again, I wrote a LinkedIn post about it. That one actually did well. And it's just about like the way that like B2B marketing has completely changed, and you really have to have a perspective. And so they did this campaign with one of the people from The Office.
Right.
Kevin Malone is the character, but like
Right.
Brian
Baumgartner, yeah.
Baumgartner, yeah, is the actor, and it's very funny. And they also have a really good Substack. So like I think they're just doing things like in an interesting way brand that is in this space. Like, so what they do on Substack is that they look at the data of things that people are spending money on, and then they comment on it from a culture perspective. Like, oh, they wrote a LinkedIn or a Substack post about how where people are spending money at gyms from a business perspective has completely changed in the last year. So we used to be at like this, like there used to be more spend on like higher end gyms, and now like corporate is like making people push to like lower end gyms. And so they're talking about that as like, you know, the change that means as a culture. Like, we still value gyms, but like we're pushing it to the side and like making people go back to kind of the 24-hour fitness. Like, we're not at Barry's anymore and paying for it. So on our
Equinox is
corporate
out, huh?
cars. Yeah.
I love what this represents. We'll do a whole B2B podcast because I think what's going on in that world is fascinating. And it just feels like they're breaking outside of their box. And this is looking at a brand that, like, internally or in the industry, you can just be like, they've got nothing interesting to say. They'll just go and kind of do the typical. And I think they're really saying, like, and literally, I think this is true. Every brand has something interesting to say. You just really have to dig into what is culturally relevant and what will make people feel seen or go, oh, yeah, me too, or go, that's interesting. And they're an example that they're doing that through their Substack, through this campaign. I think it's so good.
Yeah, and it's funny because, The Office is not a now show, it's just beloved, right? So they told a really interesting story. It's like a cultish kind of show, and so they brought something back that people love. Like, there's lots of different ways that you can kind of tap. Like, someone recently asked me, I haven't replied yet, like, how do you tap into culture, right? And
I'm not sure that's an email reply.
well, it was like a really weighted
Might be a little
question, and
bigger.
like, yeah, maybe we should have a whole podcast on it. But like, one of the things that I wrote about was like that's it's an impossible question. And the truth is, you can either tap into culture in two ways. You can tap into culture from your brand's perspective or your audience perspective. And the only ones that are doing well are doing it from their audience perspective. And the ones that are doing it from their own perspective have nothing interesting to say. So if I've got anything to advise you on, it would be look at like where your audience is, right? And so I think they looked at like, where are people like kind of thinking about money, and like, how do people think about that? And like, there's memes, so many memes from The Office. And so I'm sure that that's where this genesis of this came from. I don't know for a fact, but like, that would be kind of my assumption, is that they looked at like how people are talking about money and then brought it out.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a Venn diagram of like what their industry is, money, and what's happening culturally. And I just love that they, weren't so strict about it. They're really, again, breaking outside of the box. And I love to see that in any industry. Okay. We got to keep us moving or we'll be here until Christmas.
All right. Let's keep going.
All right.
BILT.
So good.
Another like finance sector, like it's more B2C finance sector. BILT makes like a service where like you can essentially like get points on your rent, like the way that you get credit card points for traveling or doing anything, spending money, and then you can use it for travel. Like, you can do that with your rent. Like, do not put me as a spokesperson for BILT, obviously. But they made this campaign called Roomies, which like they launched as actually a separate channel. So they did not promote it as a BILT campaign. They literally created a made-for-social TV show called Roomies. And it was about kind of the plights of like being a New York City like renter through the lens of roomies, and like talking to your, like super and all of the shit that you deal with as a New York renter. And I think it was just an incredibly good campaign. And so many people were like, well, but like, how do you even know that it's BILT and da-da-da-da-da? And it's like, I think you do not understand like at all where people are at right now with advertising, if you are asking.
But that's risky.
Question.
That's what's so great about it, is it is risky. It is for the CMO or the CEO or the VP of marketing to go like, yeah, let's do this. It's a risk to push into something where you don't know that it was necessarily BILT. Like, it isn't kind of a huge logo. It was first, let's create the content. Let's create something that's relevant in culture, tying back to our conversation. And then, we believe in the fact that people will get it and will know that it's BILT eventually, but they're not leading with that. And I think that's such a shift.
Right.
And again,
but
from a financial company, great.
It goes back to my point around like, the only thing that you can do in culture is look at what your audience is doing and tap into that, right? Like, these are what is your audience talking about in terms of rent, right? And it's the chats that you have with your friend where you're like, oh my God, like, I can't believe my super, like, did this stuff, that, and the other, or like the group chat you have with your roommates, or all the things, right? And they tapped into that energy, and then they built relevance for the brand off of things that were already happening.
BILT. Can't say it better than that.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay.
ARGOS.
ARGOS. I mean,
So
you
Argos
tell
is
me.
it's kind of like the Best Buy of the UK, but it started as like a catalog company. Like you used to get the Argos catalog and like pick out what you wanted for Christmas. Like that's like
We would call
was
that
like
Sears here in the States.
okay. So it's like the Sears catalog of the UK. But they've since like grown into they have like other sides of their business. But they created this show called Arg House. They tapped into like 5 different like quite prominent like TikTok and Instagram comedians, and they cast them all together. So like kind of like everybody's favorite like TikTok comedians are on this show, and they position it as like they're like these art influencers, but they use the products from Argos, which are like basically like Legos, or like you can buy a vacuum or like whatever. And they position these products as like art pieces, and they talk about them in that way. So it's very, very funny. It actually becomes like kind of QVC, but it's very like, sarcastic and funny, and the comedians are very high level. Like it's quite funny, and they're famous. So like not only that, but like these people have all of this content living on their channels too. So it's not just on Argos's channel, but it's also on their channels, and so they're pushing it out to their audience. So you have 5 very famous comedians pushing your campaign. I think it's such an interesting structure for how they built the team behind the campaign. Concept is funny. It actually pushes product that they sell. So like, kudos to them for finding a way to do that. Like it's just very entertaining.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a great one. I think it's the structure about it. It's setting it up in such a way, but it feels so strategic, but also so organic in the way that it's set up. It's not like, oh, then we'll have these influencers that do this, and then they'll go and they'll create their own. It just feels really organic in the various comedians, and then showing the product. And I love that they're able to kind of make fun of themselves. Like I think they really leaned into humor, and I think that's so hard for a brand to do, and really being able to do that and do it at such a high level, both for obviously the comedians, but also for their own brand. Like anytime a brand can do that, I'm here for it.
And this is a brand, like, just for clarity, like, this is a brand when my grandmother used to, like, buy stuff from them, and, like, it's where I bought my first, like, gold earrings, Like, it's like you were taken there and you picked them up from the catalog, and then you went and got them. Like, it's a very old school brand, so I think it's fun. The other interesting thing about it, just before we close out, is that they've kept it going. So they have, like, an Arg House Christmas episode, like, series, and, like, they've kept it going through, like, because quite honestly, it's working. And so they have now like mini series of this series, right? Like they have the Christmas season, and then they have like other seasons throughout time. And they found a way to like really do that. And they have the same cast, and then they bring in some new people, and like it's really interesting.
Love it.
All right.
Here for
herpes.
Herpes, herpes, herpes.
The thing that will get me banned from LinkedIn. Okay, so the New Zealand's Herpes Foundation, which is kind of funny that this exists in general, right? Like,
I do wonder how you first came across this. Really, and what
I
world
really
is your
have no
algorithm
idea.
living is really what I want to know.
It's my desk because somebody posted about it in a Substack, and if we go back to the original Substack, I probably credit like where I found it. But like, I put it on the list because like basically like every single nonprofit campaign ever is mostly boring, right? And mostly terrible.
Yes.
And this one leans into like, hey, like, so they lean into the like stigma, and they say, no, we want to be proud of this thing. Like there's like, so like, they're like genital herpes is like, it's incredibly stigmatized. It actually like causes lots of like terrible like mental health issues for people, like suicide risk. Like it's terrible. And the truth is that it affects a lot of people. So they made this like incredibly good website where they like show some like, and they just kind of like make this whole thing out of this world. And they're like, no, like let's like get behind it and be like amazing. They have like we're teaching people about this, that, and the other, and like they just lean into it in such a fascinating way, and it doesn't look anything like like traditional nonprofit medical, like, if you have herpes, like, let us know, and like, we're here to help, and here's a hotline. Like, it's not got any of that vibe. So I love it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think this is great. I think it's so great. It's almost, and it was pretty early on in the year, if I remember correctly. And it's kind of leading into what we talk a lot about, kind of at that whole shame, that whole stigma, and it really kind of hit it head on. I think what's interesting about it is it did it with humor, but it did it with such elevated humor that it doesn't feel silly or slapsticky, or like it's not giving it the respect, and that, you know, that it does cause such issues and all the things, that it's really being quite respectful of it, but it's still using a bit of humor to really push past the stigma, which I am here for.
It's so good. All right.
All right.
Aura ring.
This one,
Give us the
many will
finger.
know. Yep.
Yeah. So this campaign I really loved. I mean, honestly, because it touches on a lot of things, but like two powerful things for me that it touches on is obviously silvers and like aspirational aging and longevity. Like two things that are combined often, but like not always combined, right? So we have like not exclusively, but mostly exclusively silver cast, like elder group of people. It's very edgy. There's obviously like the tagline is give us the finger. So it's obviously like kind of a big fuck you to like everything. But it shows like there's different storylines. Like there's a guy who's like a basketball coach. And then there's like a woman who's like totally trying to like, you know, like go have sex. And like she's 70 or 80 years old and like she's out there and she's doing it. And you're like happy for her, right? And there's all these different people who are living these different lives. And like the whole point of the campaign is like, you don't need to like age out, like because you're old doesn't mean that you like aren't interested in having a great life, but having a great life is also a longevity play. And so the more you know about yourself, the more likely you are to get here, kind of thing. The tagline's great. The video was great. We saw it in London and like the photography was great. I just loved everything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to have been in the strategy room for this when they pitched it and kind of getting there through it. You know, you can just hear it and feel it about what was really happening. And again, I think this is one where, I mean, I think it's an innovative brand, but they really pushed it on this. And I'm sure, you know, it had to get through a lot of people. And I love that they did it. You know, the tagline, live fast, die old, give us the finger, and just really, really leaning into that visually and verbally. This ad that visually, obviously, for the product itself really does it. But I think, you know, again, early on, having a longevity play, well done.
Yep. And then another silver one that I liked was REFY. So REFY had another kind of aspirational aging like campaign where they did this like close-up photography of like elder women's lips for their or body parts, but mostly lips. And like there's, you know, like there's so much going on around like, oh, like I have like this saggy thing, my lips are thin now, like I don't have a crisp edge to my lip. There's so much shaming that goes on around people as they get older and like the things that they notice and like the tropes of like this thing is not aspirational, right? But they did this really cool campaign and like the women are rad in it and they look amazing and you're like, yes, I want to be you when I get older. And then they showed these like close-ups of their lips. And so then you're like, okay, like let me reframe what I was like thinking about being old. And it just like is just really nicely done, like elegant, not like crazy in your face like campaign. Like it's just a really nicely done campaign.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. The tagline, iconic never gets old, it gets redefined. Like I really think, and I know you were talking about it early on again in the year, you know, we kind of moved from silver as being like, you know, the side part or being a part of it. And this is one of the first, if not the first campaign that for me really feels like it's not just silvers as kind of the kind of main cast, but really doing it in such an elevated, such an elegance, a great word for it, that it really feels like, oh, fuck, this is totally aspirational. Like today in this moment, not just like, okay, well, when I get there, kind of like the way that the confidence, the way that the photography is done, the playfulness of it, like it's really, really well done. And I think completely reframing aging, which I am for sure here for. All right, talk about reframing.
All right,
Bobbie.
Bobbie. I mean, like, I couldn't have a list without mentioning a Bobbie campaign. It would be impossible.
Sure.
So the Bobbie campaign I have on here is the Cardi B one that was, I think, again, like, Bobbie's had so many great campaigns, but this one was great in a couple of ways for me. Like, one, Cardi B is super unexpected, right? Like, she a lot of children, but like she's not like somebody who when I think Bobbie, I think of Cardi B, but like actually she's been out in the media like talking about what it like being a strong mother and like how like, you know, like the lineage of mothers that she has. And like she's been out there talking about this and then they teamed up together. It felt really nice. That was great. And she, you know, comes with her own like persona to her that is just like was clever and cool and interesting. But then what was also interesting was that they had within that like same like campaign bit, they cast like people. So they had Sophia Rowe in there. They had like great cast of influencers who were kind of like supporting cast members, but they were like really cool. And you're like, oh, I know you. I love you. And like there were mostly new moms. And so like it was like people that you were excited that you maybe have been following their motherhood journey like recently, because that's like the truth of all like kind of influencers now is like if you become a mom or mom again, like you're probably posting about it. And we probably all know that you just become a mom again. And so like, you following along with all these people and people who you've been like kind of cheering on, and then you get to see them with a brand that you really love, and it just felt really nice. Like I was like, yay. But cool, nice, like not just rah rah, like it was rah.
Yeah. I mean, Bobbie is at, one of the top of
Elite.
the list for sure for me. I think I agree with everything that you said, and I think what's so interesting about what they've done and what they're doing is like it's a formula company. And they're completely redefining, and their strategy isn't like, let's show the product and let's do, let's show them how ours is better than any of that. They're completely reframing it and really, again, tapping into culture and what's relevant there and really empowering, supporting, broadcasting, giving a microphone to moms in all various like ways. And I think this campaign is so strong in just the chief confidence officer thing, and they did a whole thing on LinkedIn for that. Like, I just love the idea, like everybody should have one of those. Every mom should have one of those. Every business should have one of those. And I just love how they're leaning into it in such a way that's behind the energy of it and the excitement of it and what it means versus like a product.
Exactly. I mean, we constantly use them as like a reference of just like, this is where brands should be and aim to be. Like they've cut way beyond their category. Like if you say, what's a brand for moms right now? Like literally there's not a person who won't say Bobbie. And like that's a really deep category that goes way beyond formula, that goes like into all the things, and they do it in such a really cool way. Like super aspirational brand. I love everything that they do.
Yep, they're killing it. Okay,
all right.
Mercedes AMG specifically, excuse me.
Well, I put this on there because I do think we have to say specifically this campaign. It's not just everything that Mercedes has been doing. This campaign was shot by a great Tom Emerson, I think his name is, who's shot like with Depop recently, and he's done stuff for Jacquemus, and like he's just a really good, great director. In general, it's highly social, like super short. It's very sassy. Like, I say that as a woman, and I think I can say that now. Like it's cheeky. It's misbehaving. Like, we have people making out in cars and sports cars. We have people doing like, gymnastics on top of it. It's very funny, and it has a great tagline. And actually, like, it kind of breaks a lot of the rules because it's very text heavy. Like, there's always the logo there. There's always the campaign tagline. And then the visuals are very powerful, but it's super simplistic, right? And it's super entertaining. I really liked it. I was like, yes, claps.
It's so good. Right. Yeah. It's so good on so many levels. I think one of the biggest things about it is that it was shot, again, the director's shot in such an elevated, aspirational way that I think we've been in campaigns and done this work, you have to have that, right? To be so cheeky, to push it in so many other ways, like you have to make sure that the execution is really there at that level. And it's, it's that tension and that balance. And they really, really did that. And I love that it's, what is it? One of 250 unreasonable reasons for the AMG. Like it's just about being really cheeky and really pushing it on so many levels, kissing all of the parts and pieces through it. Yeah, it's great.
It doesn't really make any, like, there are some that make sense, like, because obviously, like, there's tropes around, like, cars and sports cars and why you have them, but then it's not an old guy, like, they have the young guy, like, and, it's just, like, it does it really well, and there's also, like, some totally irrational things in there that make it even better.
Yes, yeah, I love it. It's a little unhinged, but again, it's an elevated unhinged, which I am
elevated
so
unhinged,
here for.
Which is hard to do.
Very, very. But you got me. Okay. We have to talk about this one.
Maybe the next one is elevated unhinged. I mean, who knows?
Maybe. Maybe.
So we're talking about Astronomer's campaign after like the whole like Coldplay fiasco, and then they come out with Gwyneth Paltrow, and like they have this bit, and like, would we call this a campaign or would we call it a PR statement? Would we call it like just making use of the time? Like whatever it was, like it's obviously not a planned campaign, and I do think like that is, you know, making the most of a moment is a campaign strategy, right? And I think this is one that uses that like as a vehicle for greatness.
For sure. I mean, I think this is amazing. And it's not like, oh, the campaign creative and you can have kind of your preferences or opinions. But to me, it's really about, again, it's what it represents what it did. They could have taken this, which is a total PR fucking fiasco, and hidden it or done all these things or press reports or whatever it is. And they came at it like straight on. And that's what I give them so much props for. And then they came at it straight on, and then they used a bit,
Humor.
being a bit cheeky, being a bit elevated, like all of those parts and pieces, to not just say like this is happening, but to really lean into it. And that to me is amazing, what brands should be doing, because there are shitstorms going on all around us. And I think those brands have the opportunity to really lean into that, like not just avoid it, not just hit it with a PR, release, but really, really lean into it and figure out the way that's right for their brand and in culture. And I think you can kill it because I'd never heard of Astronomer, but sure have now.
All right. Paloma Wool, another one of my all-time favorites for the year.
Yep.
I called it a mother of a campaign. Again, a really quiet, elevated campaign.
See what you did there.
It's the campaign kind of it's about motherhood, but it's really about the clothes. I really like it because it's like one of those things like motherhood, and I will say we've talked about motherhood already with Bobbie, but like in the same way that Bobbie doesn't do tropes around motherhood, like this didn't do tropes around motherhood, and it wasn't a like, oh, this is a Mother's Day campaign. Like it's just motherhood is an interesting topic, and like we can talk about it the same way that we would like want to go shoot something at the beach. Like it's like great, the beach is always cool and interesting. Like motherhood is an interesting kind of thing. So they shot the clothes and it was like about working motherhood, but it wasn't like, again, it wasn't political. It was just like interesting. And I loved everything about this campaign. You have to kind of look at it to understand it. It is one of those campaigns you kind of have to see it, but it was a really good one.
Yeah, and we'll include all of the links, but I do think how, again, like I think this just broke some barriers as far as how we typically, like I think it's almost like REFY in that way, different, but it's almost like how we think about, even in campaigns that are typically about mothers, there's still some of that like, oh, it's hard, or, it's this, and there wasn't any of that in this. And again, to me, that's it's breaking barriers, and it's saying we're not going to do the same old shit. We're going to do it in a way that feels different and felt very authentic to the.
Yeah. And a smaller brand, like cool fashion, known in some circles, but not known. And like, they don't need to try so hard, right? Like they don't need to do this, but they, planted a flag and had a perspective. And I love that.
Agreed. Okay. We have to talk about this one. We wouldn't be able to do a top 20 without including it.
Yeah, I was worried it wasn't this year because it was kind of a while ago, but like
it was
the Severance campaign. So Severance
in Grand Central, yep.
In Grand Central, but it wasn't just the Grand Central thing. Like they also like released a self-help book, which I really loved, like based on the character, which is so good. Like it was for Severance too, and I will say that this campaign got us to watch Severance. So we were not Severance like fans. I was like, Dave, I think if they're putting this much money and effort behind it, we should try this show. And then we got into it. But they set up this cubicle that was like a kind of a bringing to life of like the actual show inside of Grand Central. And then they had all the real cast doing it. And it was like, you were kind of like voyeur into the Severance actual show, and it brought some of that world out. And I think that's what they did really well with all of it is like, they released the book, and like the book is like from the actual book that you could read if you were in the show, which obviously not. And so it was a really nice world building general campaign, and there were several aspects to it.
Yeah. I love that it got you to start watching it. I watch very little and don't watch this, but obviously heard about it. And I think for me, what's so impactful about this is how much they really leaned into everything when we talk about kind of effort economy. Like Literally, it wasn't just like, oh, let's do a pop-up in Grand Central. And like, they really dug deep into all of the parts and pieces and all of the details that many times it's like, no, we don't need to go that far into it. It doesn't need to be that. And they did that. And I think that paid off for them. And I just love, and I think the next one, especially, and we're starting to see more and more kind of bringing this to life. And I think this was one of the first, the Grand Central was one of the first experiences that we've seen like this. And I think it's for sure catching on and something that we're seeing. But I just give them such props for just leaning into all of the parts and pieces and all the detail. Okay, so taking us to
A24 and Timothy Chalamet. So I wrote about this just last week, right? I really liked it. It was a 18-minute fake leaked Zoom call where they had Timothy talking. So he has a movie coming out with A24 called Marty Supreme. And it was like him pitching fake, increasingly crazy ideas for how they could promote the show. Like that was the entire 18 minutes. Like it just gets more and more unhinged. And it's like you've all been on these marketing calls where you're like they first do these introductions. It's so funny. They're like, hi, I'm this. And like, it's so funny.
Awkward.
And then, and then like, it's like the client has an idea and you're like, I don't know how to tell you that you're absolutely insane. But then this client started like, like riffing and it's getting more insane. And like, it's just very funny. And like, what I really liked about this is it really didn't tell you very much about the movie, right? Like, it was like, you didn't learn that much about the movie. It had its own kind of encapsulated point, right? Like the whole thing was just for it to be this thing, right? Like it wasn't like we're gonna do a sizzle reel, here are the highlights of the movie, and here's like, the action shot, and you're gonna see the best angle of Timothy's face, and like all the traditional tropes of like movie trailers, right? And like how we kind of promote movies. And they did none of that. And they treated it like its own creative project, like its own exercise. And to me, like as I've been writing the 2026 predictions, stay tuned. One of the big ones about it is just like the big thing that I've been thinking a lot about is the amount of effort that we are expecting from people and brands. Like we are at a point where there's a lot of slop. And so the counter to the slop is going to be effort. And like, this is one example of that. And I think when we think about effort traditionally, we thought about like flashy trailers, and that's not the current understanding of effort.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And don't give away too much. I think that's such a great point. Like for me, this hits because it's just so culturally relevant instead of, and I think it's not, it's not the production, even the Apple spot that we talked about. Like it's not the production of it. It really is kind of what goes into it, and is it of a certain production value, but really more importantly, is it hitting something within culture? And I think, this again is thinking in a different way, kind of getting beyond their box of what we see traditionally done to promote movies, trailers, things like that. And then it hits on culture, and because we're all going, fuck, we've been in that Zoom meeting, we've been a part of that, and it's amazing to then go and see and kind of feel like you're a fly on the wall. And then of course you're actually more interested than you would have been in just seeing a trailer. You want to know more about it because you loved, how entertaining that was. You love that they hit in culture. You feel seen to a certain degree. Like, I just think it hits on all of those parts and pieces, and is it smarter than doing kind of the typical trailer? But for sure, going through the executive roster, I'm sure it had to get approved to say, well, we're not going to do the typical thing. And I, again, applaud them for doing it. And I think it was much more impactful because they went that route.
Well, and I applaud Timothy because I honestly think that, like, he is one of those actors, like, he'll try things. Like, we've been in situations where, like, we've had really, like, great celebrity talent signed on. They sign up to do something funny, and then they are, like, their management team will be like, yeah, like, that's not how, like, so-and-so wants to see themselves anymore, da-da-da-da-da. And you're like, wait, but he was, like, totally down for it. Then the management team kind of comes in and says, like, it's really, like, we don't want to see him or her portrayed that way. And so they get really nervous, especially with social content, right? And I think Timothy, like, so another campaign that we had on the list potentially was Cash App and Timothy. And like, he's just really gets it. And I think he just understands, like,
Mhm.
you see him out in sports and you see him talking and he just, like, he understands. Like, and he's
Yep.
not precious about himself. And I think that that is a huge, huge asset. So,
Totally. Totally. And clearly he understands
massive.
culture. I mean, he's killing it.
Right. We gotta keep going and go quickly, but like,
Yeah.
so I put on here Gap. You can name a couple of them. There's obviously one I wouldn't name, but there's Cat's Eye, like that, the one that they did with that, where they did the dancing with the group. It was amazing. I think seeing Gap kind of is interesting. Like, someone was asking me, like, you again, like a different group of people, but like so much conversation around culture, and they were like, do you think
Mhm.
like brands are kind of getting culture again? And I've been calling it the Gap effect. Like, I'm like, I think people saw Gap say, you know what? We can sit on the sidelines and try fucking nothing and die on the vine, or we can come out and we can come out swinging and we can try something and we're going to put effort behind it. Again, they are not doing just one campaign. They have been like coming at us like for the last year and saying, hey, we're relevant again. We're trying. Here's how we're trying. We're doing it. And people are seeing the success that Gap is having. I will say again, I still think that they could do better in store. But like, they're seeing the success that they're having, like putting the effort in, and it's turning brands on. Like, I mean, maybe that sounds wrong, but like, it's turning on a brain.
I'm here for a
It's
brand turn
turning
on.
Yeah, it's turning on a side of CMOs' brains, I think, where they're like, you mean like we can't just do nothing and like we can't not try, and like, oh, we can do something and try something and like try to be relevant again, and that's okay. And I think Gap has given everybody permission to do that. And I'm
Mhm.
seeing a ton of brands waking up and saying, hey, how do we do this in our own way? And Gap had a legacy that they tapped into, so that was handy for them. But you know, I applaud them because I think that they've turned. I think they've like opened people's eyes or woken people up or like shaken the tree a little bit in order to get people to kind of realize that they don't have to do nothing.
Right. Well, they can't do nothing. Yeah. I mean, I think for a long time, and I think it's still kind of pretty quiet over there in fashion and retail, like everybody's been so scared. You
Mhm.
business, oh, I don't know. Like, we can't do anything that different. We can't do anything that unique. We can, oh, store windows. Like, there's been so much fear that the brands have done nothing. And the amount of content that Gap has been putting out is just beyond impressive. And I think for sure, you know, ever since Richard Dixon went there, like we're seeing a complete change. And they are leaning into, you know, what was culturally relevant or what is culturally relevant, but kind of from their past, kind of the typical dancing, fun music, really optimistic, kind of in your face, everybody kind of in repetition of the clothes. And I think that's really working for them. But I also love, and even the Gwyneth, that they're at least trying other things and they're doing kind of all types of things, not just staying safe in what they know is working, but they're really trying a lot of different things. And some of them, certainly in both of our opinions, I think more successful than others. But I just love that they're trying it and they're pushing it in a space that has been pretty quiet for a while.
To be clear, the reason that the Gwyneth one didn't work, by the way, is not because of the type of campaign it was. They've done that kind of like headshot, like iconic person, and they've done it well historically. Like, you can actually go into their Flatiron store and they have
Yeah.
great like iconic photography from like past campaigns. It was the casting that was the problem there. Anyway, we'll move on.
All right.
Bottega.
Another one. Killing it. Killing it.
I liked it. I really liked it.
So good.
I loved the way they rolled the campaign out. So that was like, for me, like why I put this one on the list is that like I think that like as a campaign teaser, seeing the hands come together and then eventually seeing the full campaign.
You want to give a little
was-
description quickly?
How to describe it? So
It's a hand
the
campaign.
campaign, yeah, we call it the hand campaign internally, but like
Hmm.
like they had like these black and white photography, like of these hands coming together. You get like kind of a sleeve in there and you don't really know what it is, and then they zoom out and you see this iconic cast essentially. Like it's nothing.
Yeah.
It wasn't like anything again like that you were like if you'd have pitched that, you were like, oh, this is so risky, you know. It wasn't
Yeah.
risky, but it was just really nicely, well, like it was nicely done. The photography was great. It was beautiful. It felt elevated, relevant.
Well, I do think it was, I agree with all those things, but I do think it was risky. I think it was risky to take, you know, what's been Bottega Veneta, a handbag brand for, you know, now a lifestyle brand, and just say, well, we're not really going to show the product. We're actually going to start this campaign with kind of hands And I think that is risky to do that. But it drew people in and got them interested. And I think even more so for me to create such an iconic, I mean, the photography itself was so beautiful, so well done, so well lit, so well art directed. And to be able to create a really, iconic, we can look back on that in, 50 years and be like, no, that was a beautiful campaign. I think that's really amazing for a brand to be able to do, and like really cements themselves as a legacy brand. But I do think that there was a bit of risk involved, which I totally applaud. Okay, on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Toblerone airfoot tantrum.
Yeah. So this campaign, very, very different. Basically, Toblerone like staged a tantrum in an airport that went viral, where this girl like finds, so for me growing up, like Toblerone, like historically was something that you got when you went on a trip. Like, I don't know, at the
Duty free? The ginormous one?
Yeah, like it would, but it was like literally like my grandmother would bring me a Toblerone like every single time she traveled. Like I don't know if it's a UK thing or just like a Europe thing, but is very like tied to traveling, this brand in the UK. And they have this girl and she like or this child, and they have the tantrum, and because they're not getting the Toblerone, and it goes viral, and then you find out that Toblerone staged the campaign, and then they turn it into a thing. Would I do it? Probably not, but it definitely was like risky, fun, interesting, brought up a brand that I like had completely forgotten about in a new and relevant way. So fun, cool,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I have a lot of PTSD around children's tantrums in the airport, so little hesitant on that one. But I do think
you put it on the list.
Yeah, I do, because I do think it's like it was just, again, I think it's just stepping outside of what we traditionally think about in the category. And I think that's, for me, what these all of the ones really do. It's just doing something that's a little bit different, and you would never think about, okay, it's a candy brand, we're going to do this, but I think it really worked. Okay.
It was fun.
Duo.
All right. Duolingo killed
Gotta
the
include
bird.
this one.
I mean, like, honestly, I don't even know if we need to talk about it. Like, it was kind of like this big cultural moment. They killed it off, then they brought it back. It felt like very dramatic for a moment. Now I think we're kind of like all over it. But it was a moment. It was a big moment of this year, February.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think this brand is just worth mentioning because I think they've just created not necessarily a new category, but they've just done things that are so kind of first. And I think they're really pushing things, and they're unhinged in the best possible way. And I think they've led the way in certainly unhinged mascots, but I think in other ways as well. So I just give them props in general.
Yes, agreed. And I think, like, again, like if you were a language brand, like you would. So I think they've given everybody kind of permission, and I would say, use it. And then second to last, I put Yeti. To be honest, I don't know if this is like the campaign of the year, but I thought we had to have a holiday campaign on here, and this was the one that I liked the best. It's like, don't get people a Yeti is like basically like the entire premise of the campaign. And it like dives in. I liked it for two reasons, which I wrote about, which is like, I think that it does a really great job of like showing you and like you feeling seen as like an outdoors person, right? Like it's like, like don't get people a Yeti if like you don't want to like do all of these like really difficult things about being an outdoors person, like waking up in the morning or eating like terrible beans on a fire, or like, like getting wet or having your birthday like on the side of an iceberg, like whatever. But I also think that it does this really good job of showing making the gifter feel really seen, because it's like, like you're like when you're gifting somebody something at the holidays, like for me, like choosing the gift is like, it's such an act of love, like it's like, I'm giving you this gift because like you would like it, not because I would like it, right? Like most of the time, like that's how you feel about gifts. Like you're not necessarily like, oh, I resonate with this, right? But also like you don't always resonate with the things that the person loves. Like you're not a coffee aficionado, or you're not this, like, you're not an outdoors person. And yet maybe you've also found yourself like showing up and like having to camp when you're not like a camper, right? Like that is, and so I thought it did a really nice job of like kind of balancing the two audiences of this campaign, like the person who's receiving and the person who's giving, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah, I just like the confidence of it, and that they are really leaning in and really understand who they are and who their customer is, and they're just really trying to highlight that and help them feel seen. And I just love the idea of any campaign leading with, don't buy it if. And again, I would say on this is Yeti's content is just the visual is
It was
so
really well
cinematic.
edited.
It's really beautifully done. Yeah, really, beautifully shot and beautifully edited. And I think that makes such a difference. Again, because the content is like, it's all kind of pieced together. It's all of kind of these parts and pieces of really showing these scrapes and all these things. And I think everybody probably identifies with a certain amount of it and feels seen through a certain amount of it. But I do think it's a lot in the way that it's shot in the edit.
Yeah. And then they
so
had
dynamic.
a country singer do the voiceover, and it's like, if you know that person, like, it works. And like, so it was nice.
Yeah, but even just the twang of the accent, I think works, again, for the brand. Okay, last and final, number 20.
We put Taco Bell's drive-through, like, make your own tacos, like, we'll promote your tacos. Like, it's not the drive-through one, it's the promote your tacos, right? Like, we'll sell your tacos campaign. So basically, they've had a drive-through one too, which I'm thinking of. That was last year. This campaign was interesting to me because it's the mechanics again are really interesting, right? So they basically like had this competition where you can like, you sort of like put together your perfect Taco Bell like order, and then you like submit it on this website, and if it gets voted on, then it would go like to like I think regionally, and then it would like if you made it nationally, then it would get put on a billboard, and then it would get put on the national menu, and like it's just a very interesting like mechanic for a campaign that feels really like taps into another big thing that we've been talking about lately, which is like allowing people to feel really involved in your brand. Like this one, they are controlling it maybe a little bit more than I would love. Like I think like if they really weren't like, because I'm sure that they cherry picked that at the end of the day to like make it sure it worked. But like, in a perfect world, that wouldn't be the case. But like we all know that that's not how any of that works. So. But I did like that campaign. It was a good one. Fun, interesting, different.
Yeah, and I think it's taking kind of a traditional, sweepstakes or something like that and kind of making it feel more like content created, making it feel more like the user's actually doing something and participating. I think there's a lot of logistics that go into something like this, and I think the way that they're spinning it just felt kind of more organic and more creating it with the user in mind than, kind of necessarily just the campaign itself.
Yeah. Fun and very on brand for them. Like I think they always do.
Yes.
Do kind of like.
Yeah, they've done some fun stuff this year. Okay.
I know I missed some. Like
yes,
I know there were some really good ones. I think like sure Heineken's done something good. I'm sure like there's a bunch of people who like try really hard all the time. So tell us which ones we missed. Drop the links.
Yeah, and I want to know of this list, what were your favorites? So let us know your favorites. Let us know what we missed. Let us know some additional ones. Would love to hear. Let's get a conversation.
And happy holidays.
Happy holidays. And if you like this, share it. Give the algorithm some love. We'd appreciate it.
Ciao, ciao.
Stay curious.
That was it for this episode of Good Thinking. Don't forget to tune in next week.
If you found this valuable, subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app.
And don't forget to read on Substack for even more insights.
And if you really liked it, drop us a heart. We'd love to hear from you.
Ciao. Until next time.